And hello, and welcome to a special edition of We're Not Wizards. This one is going to be called A Work in Progress, and the actual title of it is going to go, it's Elementary Dear Watson, we're just giving it a bit of a kick.
Excellent.
So now I know why it's called that, and
Yeah.
you will know why it's called that. Now, you might hear some background noise already because I have two rather excited guests with me this evening, because we're doing a new format, so it's always going to be very exciting. So please be upstanding and say hello to Lucy and Jim Keifer, who are all the way from sunny California. Is
Yes,
that right?
That's right.
That's right, Richard.
You're even saying hello in tandem. That's so wonderful. So you're here to talk about your game that is your Kickstarter game, which is called Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's Web. Yes?
That is right. We're very, very excited about it.
Okay. Now, I've had a look at the rules. It looks like it's a very, very interesting concept. It looks like the gameplay is going to be very, very interesting as well. I think when we first started talking about this, I think the phrase that was used was it was kind of like like pandemic kind of meets Carsacone. Is that the kind of is that where you were going with it?
That was our original idea, was what would pandemic played on a moving tile Carcassonne. How did you pronounce it?
I pronounce it completely incorrectly.
Oh
because
God, I'm probably saying it all wrong too. I have no idea.
We'll just go back and we'll just edit everything
Whatever.
out. But
the Ravensburger game with the moving tiles, it's fantastic. But what would pandemic look like played on that kind of board? And
okay.
Well, that was the original idea. The other kind of original idea, obviously, we made a Sherlock Holmes board game, mostly because the existing Sherlock Holmes board games are terrible. Sorry if you like them, but they are very, very bad. So we wanted a good one, and one of the fun little images from the more recent kind of spat of Sherlock Holmes TV shows are when Sherlock Holmes makes those wonderful like crime-solving like collages across a wall, just with all of the suspects and.
So what version of Sherlock Holmes are you talking about? Are you talking about the UK version with Benedict Cumberbatch, or are you talking about the US version that I believe's got Lucy Liu playing Watson?
Well, my personal favorite is the US version with Lucy Liu. I realize I know that's a little bit contrary of me. I know.
Yeah, no, okay.
No, I get that. I do. Of course, I mean, with all my Sherlock Holmes hipster friends, it's clearly all about the Soviet Russian one that's impossible to get your hands on. No.
So you're a big fan of Sherlock then?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Sherlock. And one of the things we wanted to do for this particular game is there have been so many Holmeses that this one's meant to be sort of all-inclusive. And so we pulled jokes from kind of all of the different versions, like visuals from all the different versions. It is Victorian, but like, I don't know, we've used, in our beautiful art, we've used references from, I think, just about every Sherlock Holmes television show there is. The Basil Rathbone one, the Jeremy Brett one, the Robert Downey Jr. one, the Benedict Cumberbatch one, and also the Johnny Lee Miller one too. So
let's dial it back a bit, because one of the things that we talk about is, whenever we've done kind of whenever we've been involved in previous episodes of chatting to anybody who isn't normally calling, is to find out a little bit about your own kind of background in kind of board games. Now, what was it like kind of, what was it like in the kind of the Keifer household in relation to board games? Did you play a lot?
That's a funny question.
That's an interesting question. It's very pertinent. we've been playing in our house really since the day Lucy was born, for sure. And before, I have been in the game industry for over 30 years. I started actually as an intern at Mattel way back when I was in college. Yeah. And actually, I was an intern on the Masters of the Universe line. I was designing He-Man figures.
I didn't know that was your first job. Oh, that's adorable.
It's all secrets. All secrets are out, and we're not wizards tonight. This is like Jeremy Kyle. I never knew my dad designed He-Man.
Well, I did for one summer, and every week we would have a staff meeting, and people would throw out new ideas, and I always had some elaborate new scheme to have a big game system that incorporated all the figures, and everyone would look at me and they'd say, "Well, we don't really make games, so nice try." So, but I really loved it. It got me thinking about doing games because I'd played games my whole life. I'd always taken old games like Battleship and Risk and all these different types of games and combine them, and I was always doing things like that. So I got into it and started focusing my design portfolio, if you will, on games. And I started at Milton Bradley when I graduated from college.
So what kind of stuff did you do at Milton Bradley? Because I had a large collection of Milton Bradley games when I was growing up. So, I mean, I played things like Hotel, I believe was potentially one of yours. But I mean, you tell what kind of games.
So
did you
I remember Hotel was going on when I was there. It's interesting. I was hired as a industrial designer, which is my training, and so I was designing all the plastic components for all the various games. So I'd work on many games. But during my lunch hour, I started inventing because to me that was a lot more fun. And I came up with Thunder Road, which was my first game. You
invented Thunder Road?
I invented Thunder Road, yes. And there's actually still a following on the Game Board Geek. I chime in every once in a while. I get in on the chat room. And that was back in, I guess 86, 87.
Yeah, I remember. My brother got that for Christmas, and we must have played it for. I think we played it for months, because there was other games. I mean, I think we had a series of Christmases where we had kind of new board games. So there was like Lost Valley of the Dinosaurs, and then there was Escape from Atlantis came out, and there was obviously Hotel. So this was when board games were starting to get kind of interesting. And that was before we went into, like, say, Hero Quest as well. So Thunder Road was...
It's cool that you know Thunder Road. More people should. Way more people should.
Thunder Road was my first. It was a lot of fun. And from that point on, I started just also doing the whole thing where you come up with the idea, you make the prototypes, design the plastics, just all of it. So I kind of like doing as much as I can, because as Lucille Ball said once, I think the more you do, the more you can do. So and I kind of we're always trying to do more.
So give us some more names. What is there other games that you were behind?
Let's see. The following year was Screaming Eagles. I invented, and that was an interesting one because it was intended to be played on two boards as Thunder Road was. But then for various reasons it was changed to play on one board, and it has a very unique movement system. I did Crash Canyon, which was a big 3D game board, which was the follow-up to Fireball Island. And what's interesting there is my wife did all of the artwork for Crash Canyon.
Is that how you two met then?
We met a couple of years earlier, right in college. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so that was right at the very beginning, where we. So she was doing that.
So Board Game, obviously, So board games have been a major part of your life. Are you still involved in board games to this day, or are you doing other things?
Actually, I'm very much involved in board games. I have about 4 years ago, I sort of ended my corporate career. I was the design VP at Spin Master, and then I decided to be an inventor, and we've got about 5 games on the market now, and there's 5 more that are coming. We've got contracts and signed and whatnot, but those are not out yet. So I'm not even sure.
I mean, can you put some names out there for the ones that you've done that some of our listeners might recognize?
Well, there's one that's out right now, Rotten Apples, by No Kidding. There's a game called All In. It's another adult party game by Patch. And then there's a slightly more risque, or a lot more risque version of that general game called You Bet Your Ass.
Okay.
And that's by Spunkworks.
Okay.
And then on a completely different path, we have a game called Fish and Chips, which is a adorable little preschool game, which Cardinal is coming out with. And we actually have also a online game called Picturific, which has been online for 5-6 years now, I think, 7 years more. That's on shockwave.com and slingo.com. And we're in the final throes right now of getting the app made, so that will be, available on your phones and your tablets and all that. So we're doing a lot of stuff, and it's fun inventing, and so still very active in it. And frankly, it's the fun part, from my perspective of the game business, which is creating the games and getting people excited about them. And
yeah, I mean, I've spoken to a couple of game designers now. Most recently, an episode that isn't released and will be soon is with a gentleman by the name of Eduardo Baraf. Also, John Gilmore. I spoke to him quite recently. He's quite I guess he's kind of like you, but right now, but 20 years ago or something, because he's kind of involved in, I mean, board games. I mean, do you play a lot of board games that are out just now? Do you, I mean, obviously we mentioned my horrific mispronunciation of Carcassonne, or Carcassonne even. I've done it again. But do you play anything that's out there just now? I mean, have you played the Dixits of this world? Have you played Catan, anything like that? Do you get involved in the current board game scene?
Oh, absolutely. Well, just my business being what it is, you try to at least be aware of everything that comes out and play as much of it as you can. I love Carcassonne, always have.
And you sound like you can pronounce it like. At least you can pronounce it like.
I have no idea what. All I can tell you is that's how we pronounce it in California. I don't know if it's accurate or not.
I'm probably just doing the Scottish version.
I keep wanting to tell you. I keep wanting to ask you to give me more power, Scotty. I just keep wanting to do that.
You can do that if you want. You can't do that with the laws of physics, Captain. I'm giving it all I can, Captain. It's running down the sides, sir. I'm doing the best I can. Bring it up to the 9.
So,
the accent is very
Forget it, Jim. I'm a doctor, not a mechanic.
From SNLA, the accent is really fun.
I'm sorry I went down that rabbit hole. So, no, I Settlers of Catan, Carcassonne, those are wonderful. Ticket to Ride, I enjoy playing. I've always loved Risk, and I have lots of versions of it. And I guess I'm drawn toward the types of games that are, a lot of people would consider them gateway games. They're kind of mass. They're kind of the gamer, but yet gamers can appreciate them and like them. I love how gaming has really had this incredible resurgence in the last 7-10 years.
What do you think of the current scene? I mean, because board games are going through like a golden age at the moment. I mean, it's become like a multi-billion-dollar industry again, and more in case of not just like your monopolies of this world, but there's some games doing some kind of serious money, even on like your Kickstarter. There's games that are getting funded for $2 million.
Oh yeah.
Does that get you kind of excited about kind of what you're about to undertake? Just seeing how it's a wonderful time to be involved in cardboard, basically. If you look at it that way.
It's wonderful. My whole career, I've been in board games, and I can't tell you how many times everybody would all, various people in the company around me, maybe from the toy groups, they would all look, oh, you're going to be out of business, next week, next month. And it's like, I don't know, they still seem to be popular, and we're all playing them, and they're a great value, and I just I can't see them ever going away, because it's really connecting people on a real visceral, direct level that, frankly, a lot of the technology that's out there today just doesn't do, or tries really hard to do. Yeah. And it's just the nature of what a board game is.
Yeah, I say this all the time on the podcast, is that the movement in video games for multiplayer seems to be anyone. You can play with anyone except the person kind of sitting next to you. And the thing I love, the thing I love about board games is that I can go into a room with a box and give me 20 minutes and I can have people who've never played a board game before absolutely loving what they're doing. I mean, at the weekend there, I was over there seeing the in-laws, and I took a copy of one of the Star Wars kind of little X-Wing, basically a starter set for X-Wing for my nephew, just to get him kind of interested and see what it was like. And he grasped it within about 20 minutes, and he was becoming really, really competent after a couple of games. And this is somebody that has kind of struggled with kind of his maths and his English at school, but he was able to grasp kind of complex kind of movements and make complex decisions and stuff like that. And that was thanks to kind of 3 miniatures and a ruler, basically. So to me, board games are becoming a very, very important part of my kind of day-to-day doings. But I mean, do you have a large collection of board games? I mean, is there the Jim Keifer kind of vault of board games?
Yeah, I can't even come up with a number for them. They're in multiple places. It's hundreds, and this guy with the blower is outside the door again.
That's fine.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
So, all right. So, yeah, I have hundreds of games. I mean, most of them. I'll have some games that I have as these are my go-to games that I would pull out with friends. There's some games I have that are fairly valuable, and so they're kept in one.
Dad particularly collects risks. Sets of risks.
Oh, right. Okay.
And a lot of them are original, back when the game was French and called Le Conquest du Monde, and you know, very cool.
Do you have them like airtight, kind of sealed in special kind of cabinets and stuff like that you're not allowed to play it?
That's a good idea, but I don't.
It's like one of those, was it barometric chambers or something like that? So it doesn't age.
We'll get right on those barometric chambers.
No.
Well,
I was speaking.
Yeah, I know.
I was speaking to a comic collector the other day, and what he does is he gets his comics slabbed. And what that means is that you get a normal comic and you basically place it between two bits of perspex, and they put like the grading of the comic on, and they basically seal it up. And they charge money to do that. They charge like $300 a time. And he's showing me these comics, and he's like, look at this. And it's like, oh, you can't read it. He says, that's not the point. It's nobody else can touch it. And it's like, wow. But do you still? I take it. Do you have like a couple of copies of Thunder Road then?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think I probably have one or two that are still sealed.
No. Right. Okay. Well, that's
and then I have some earlier versions, because there was a version of that game done first called Wastelanders. It was the first version of the game. Had a commercial made for it and everything, but then in a package. But then the game got renamed to Thunder Road.
I remember the cover, because it was a Mad Max looking figure on the cover with two hands on a steering wheel, and to the left and right of him was the different vehicles, and it was a kind of like a browny black box with over the front of it, and the boards were amazing, because you would drive along the boards, and if you fell behind effectively in the race, then you would lose your vehicles completely. And you had little mini cockpit. I'm just, I'm telling somebody what the game is that they designed. It's just crazy, but you kind of, the flood of nostalgia that came along when you mentioned you'd done Thunder Road it's just too much. You've taken me back to a much younger version of myself, and I'm now beaming inside. So I thank you very much for doing that, Jim.
But games tend to do that. Games really do that. They are like they're like little time capsules. And what's wonderful is you have multiple. Like, you could play it today. You could play it with a kid. And that's what I love about games. Is there's so few activities that really, an 8-year-old can do it with their grandfather, their mom or whoever, and it's just like, on a pretty much an equal footing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be. I go to a board game club regularly that most of the listeners will be aware of, and I take my son along sometimes, and we play Pokemon, or we play Codenames, or we play whatever we fancy at the time. So it's pretty good in that respect as well.
Codenames is fun. We played that the other day.
Yeah, well, I did a guest episode with the wonderful Gary Butterfield, and we talked a lot about Codenames, and it was all very, very good. And they've won their award recently, so yeah. I think they're bringing out a couple of new versions. So it's a very, very, it's a brilliant, fun little entry game that you can get anybody playing. It's kind of fantastic. Are there any games that okay, here's an interesting question for you. One of the things that's come out with regards to Risk is the Risk Legacy series. Now, what are your views? What are your views, Jim, on somebody taking a board game of Risk and sticking stickers all over it and ripping up all the cards? What do you think of Legacy?
We played through the whole cycle with the same players, and I love it because the planet is named after me, because I won.
Yeah. Dad kept winning and winning until by the end it was everybody against Dad, because it had to be. He was so powered up by that point, and he still won anyway. So
But it made for some of the later plays were actually very contentious, because at the very outset of the game it was everybody do everything they could to destroy as much of me as they could. And
if they knew you were going to win, Jim. I mean,
I would say I think it's fascinating to take the idea of sort of a narrative, like one big long story that happens. That's kind of seemed to be how it kind of evolved because we had the same people playing over and over, which I think typically happens. I've been having a Risk night or a game night for years, and for the most part it's the same group of people that keep coming back. I thought it was really innovative. I enjoyed it, and I think the balancing gets a little tricky. But it's all good fun. So I enjoyed it.
There's a few there's a few legacy games coming out now. There's one about purely about piracy, it seems, which is called, I think, Seafell. That's going to be a legacy game. There's obviously Pandemic Legacy, which has been kicking about as well. And there's also somebody I spoke to recently, John Gilmore. He's got Wasteland Express, which, as you play, you can play like a 10-game campaign. and there are kind of things that you can change and alter about the game in order to change the experience, which is good. Obviously, there's some people out there that the idea of putting stickers on their board game and altering it forever is quite a scary thing. But I've yet to try a legacy game fully myself, but there's a couple that have piqued my interest, so I'll be looking forward to kind of them. You mentioned obviously, obviously you have your regular kind of gaming. Is there any games that you have seen recently that you would maybe like to have a shot of, that's maybe piqued your interest?
By a shot of, do you mean play it?
A game, yeah, play it, yeah. Sorry, that's Scottishness, Captain. You'll have to run us through the translator, Captain.
I've yet to have a really decent game of Munchkin, which I know has been out there for a while, but I don't know. I had such a good time with Illuminati, and I don't know. It's just been a little difficult to get a really good Munchkin group together. Also,
we tried once. We had it.
The other one that people keep talking about to me that I want to play, because that's usually how I kind of. It's all completely word of mouth at this point, but people keep telling me about Betrayal at the House on the Hill.
Yeah,
I want to get a good group together for that, because it also seems like a game where we were just talking about games that you can play with just anybody, but then there are other types of games that, if you're not playing with the right group, that's not properly good enough or properly enough into it, it's not going to quite work.
Yeah, it can depend on the game. It can depend on the game itself. I mean,
it depends
games
totally.
Like, if you've got like a quarterback in play, if you're playing like say Pandemic, then you can get the quarterback factor where somebody who's played the game before will just come in and steamroller everybody else's decisions, especially if they know how the kind of the game works. We're gonna be. Well, one of the games we're going to be trying out, or we're looking at trying out, is going to be Scythe, which seems to have got a lot of interest recently, which is a kind of a 19... It's based around what happens after the First World War if kind of like autonomous kind of machines, steam machines kind of took over. And that looks kind of really, really interesting, and there's been a massive amount of buzz about that, so we'll be looking at that.
That's what the people were when we were at the game cafe last weekend. That was what they were playing next to us, Dad. Remember?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. No, it looked very interesting.
It looked beautiful, and I hear wonderful things about Scythe.
The artwork in it is fantastic. Even the box, the kind of the watercolor box. I'm a very kind of arty type person, so anything that's kind of well presented in that manner is kind of. I find it it entices me a lot more when we see somebody that's kind of made an effort. And speaking of enticing art, let's jump into the whole purpose of our conversation, which let's leave the leaf blowers to one side, the nostalgic Thunder Road, and my impressions of probably more Simon Pegg, kind of Scotty from Star Trek. Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's Web. One of the things that strikes you straight away, that struck me straight away, is the artwork on it, which I believe I think everything on the game has kind of been done within the family. Is that correct?
That's how we do it. Our family is effectively a very, very small game company.
Yeah, it's really wonderful the way this worked out, because Lucy and I pretty much worked out the original. Well, with my wife Kathleen, sort of talked about the concept of the game and playing on the pieces, and are having lots of moving pieces on the board. Lucy and I did virtually all of the thinking involved. There's a kind of a high level of thought that's needed to create something from nothing, and especially something like this, which is fairly complex because
Yeah.
it's a cooperative game.
Yeah.
So we did that, but my other daughter, Emily, she did all of the artwork, and she's in fact she's just a dynamo, very talented, and just goes right at it. And she does the graphic design as well as all of the beautiful watercolors that are everything in this game is illustrated.
Where did the idea come from? Because it sounds to me when Lucy kind of was talking earlier.
Got a little off topic. Sorry.
Do you think this is not the podcast for staying on topic? There are other podcasts for staying on topic. This is let's face it, we just spent 10 minutes talking about Thunder Road. So this is not a podcast for staying on topic. This is the podcast that goes everywhere. Where did the idea? I mean, yeah, where did the idea come from? Because it sounds to me like you're fans of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's work. Mm-hmm. So what made you move from saying any other type of game that you create? You obviously mentioned you didn't feel there was any kind of decent Sherlock Holmes games out. So what made you decide, right, this is the one we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it? Where did the idea originally come from?
There were a couple things. We loved the look of kind of the crime-solving montages Sherlock Holmes will put up on the wall in his television shows. It's a little bit like those conspiracy theory collages with the string and all, and that just seemed very cool-looking and very game-like to us, and we wanted a game that kind of looked like that. This is also a game very specifically for people who are Sherlock Holmes fans and might not have really played many games before. So we wanted something that was interesting, that was light strategy, but wasn't like too scary, essentially, to throw everyone off. And that was part of the reason we made it a cooperative game, because a lot of people are kind of turned off by sort of nasty competitive game experiences, especially girls, who a lot of Sherlock Holmes fans are now for, obvious reasons because of the lovely television shows. So that was a lot of our thinking there. It's funny, we owe so much, like the game owes so much to Catan, not because it's anything like Catan, but Catan made hexes like not scary for the mass market, and before that they were so scary you couldn't do a game with a hex in it. That's only scary games with rulers and math and.
Did Jim? Did you come home from work a couple of times and just said that's another hexagon game that's just been rejected?
Oh well, well, absolutely. I mean, for years I started Mattel Games and I ran the design side for 15 years, and I would view game inventions constantly from inventors everywhere, and certainly in anything that would remotely be mass market, you couldn't have anything that had a hex on it. Lucy's dead on there. That was it. I mean, just look at it. Look at all those hexes. Oh, that looks really scary and hard. So what else do you have? So things have changed.
How did it come together then? Obviously, I mean, people who are listening just now are going to be going like, well, this sounds kind of interesting, but what's it about? I mean, it's obviously about Sherlock Holmes, but what do you do? I mean, how do you play it? What's the kind of, sell it? Right. This is the selling time kind of thing. Right. This is the thing about, explain to us, kind of what, I've looked over the rules, and as I say, it kind of looks fascinating. We've probably confused people by me not being able to pronounce game names, but it is essentially placing tiles in order to connect up other tiles in order to achieve a kind of a connection back to Mr. Moriarty. But I mean,
that's
go for it.
Okay. I guess I'll handle this question. The the object of the game is, yes, it's like, essentially what it is you have Moriarty in the center, and he's a tile, and he's behind all the unsolved crimes in London, which are tiles themselves, and so you sort of put around him, and the object of the game is to kind of connect the unsolved crimes to Moriarty, kind of build a case against him, and you connect up clues to witnesses, to informants, and to locations, and you just try and build up essentially a web with Moriarty at the center, which is why the game is called Moriarty's Web. It is a cooperative game, which means everybody plays against the game, and at the end of your turn, Moriarty takes his turn, and Moriarty is represented by a deck of cards, and on his turn, depending on what the deck of cards says, he does things to wreck your case. He'll kidnap your witnesses, and he'll steal your clues, or he'll kidnap you, and he'll just and then on your turn, you have to fix the damage he's done and try and connect more crimes. And the more unsolved crimes that are on the board, the more powerful he gets until if you don't sort of defeat him fast enough, you'll get completely overwhelmed.
Because you all have, when you connect the tiles, the tiles themselves are really interesting looking, because it's you have the central picture, and then surrounding it you have kind of various patterns along the edges. Yes. And you match the patterns when you're connecting the tiles together, but also and you got to, obviously the aim is to either try and connect it so everything works together in a space, but you can also connect it up because everybody gets an individual player, you see.
Yes.
I have read the rules.
No.
That's fair, I have gone through it. So, am I right in saying that there's obviously all the kind of the well-known characters from the from that universe.
Yes.
And how are they, who have you got there?
A lot of the strategy of our game, because what we're doing with the tiles is a lot of it's puzzly. It's very spatial reasoning. It's all about, well, if this fits here and his fits here, so you have enough room to put everything. A lot of the strategy in the games comes from the playing pieces, and everyone plays as a particular character, and each particular character has a special rule. They have a special power, like a special thing that their piece can do and no one else can do that is appropriate to their character. Like Holmes's power is, most people can only you have two moves a turn, so there's only a limited amount of tiles you can match up and things you can change on the board, except for Holmes. Holmes can change anything he wants, basically, because that's just who Holmes is. It's always, well, if we connect this clue to this other witness, then suddenly the whole thing opens up. Watson has a much more protective role. Watson is able to protect other people so they don't get kidnapped. He's able to protect important tiles to make sure Moriarty doesn't steal them. Mycroft, who's the Holmes's sort of spy master older brother, gets to know what Moriarty is going to do slightly before he actually does it. So he, which can be extremely useful or cannot. And we also have Inspector Lestrade and Irene Adler, and she gets to sort of peek at the, on your turn, you pick a clue that you like, and she gets to check it. She gets to peek at all the piles to see which one she wants, and Lestrade gets to, Inspector Lestrade or Lestrade gets to, usually tiles have to be connected for you to move between them. But Lestrade doesn't have to do that. He can just sort of teleport onto another one, and somebody who played the game put it, when I was explaining this to him, said, "Well, of course, because he's Inspector Lestrade. Sometimes he just randomly stumbles onto the right clue. He doesn't know how he found it. He doesn't know why it's the right clue, but here he is, and he's got it. So that's excellent."
So that can that affect the difficulty of the game? Because one of the things you say that is, if you want an easy game, you go for Holmes. If you want, if you can change characters based on how difficult you want it to be. would it be? I mean, can you play as two characters at once? For instance, could you have like a two-player game where you play like as Holmes and Lestrade, and the other person plays like as Watson and Mrs. Adler? Could you do it that way?
You could. We haven't tried.
You certainly.
But
It's interesting you say that, because some of the times when we're just running through the game and we were balancing the game out, so we effectively were.
Well, unless you count those times, yeah.
Right. I mean, we were actually playing it that way. We hadn't considered that would be part of the rules. The game right now plays for 3 to 6.
Right.
But it's an interesting notion. What's interesting about the characters is it's not just which ones you choose to play with, but it's also the order that they go in. And frankly, the more we keep playing the game, that becomes like a strategy in itself. The sort of this meta game of, before you even play, well, what's the best order to play in. So there's a lot of fun variables to think about, but this is not a. It's a fairly light, fun game to be played really kind of in a social. I mean, when you're playing this game, everybody is cheering together. When you finally win, if you win, and you only win about a third of the time.
Yeah, third or fourth.
There's a big huge cheer that goes up. So it's really funny. You're sitting at a game cafe and you're playing the game, and everybody, there's always a din of noise, and all of a sudden, right in the middle, there's just this like, yay! And it's just like, because they won, and it's just, sometimes it's such a nail biter if you can actually beat Moriarty.
Yeah, but, people like a challenge. I mean, one of the games I love, Dead of Winter, is. It's designed so you're basically not meant to win every single time. Because if you win every time, if you played it...
It's boring. That's boring. There's no challenge there.
Exactly. You'll put it away. If you're winning every single time, then you'll eventually kind of put it away, and it's meant to be kind of really tough. Obviously, one of the reasons we gave this, that I gave it, the ridiculous made-up title off the top of my head at the beginning, was because the way you're going to be approaching this is through Kickstarter. So what made you decide to go down, I guess, the Kickstarter route, as opposed to maybe looking at, because you've got connections with the industry, Jim, giving somebody the nudge and saying, go and run off 3,000 copies of this, if you don't mind, kind of thing. Well, I mean, was there a reason for going down the Kickstarter route?
Well, absolutely. We come up with lots of game ideas, and we show them and to lots of game companies really all over the world. And many of them get picked up. Many more don't. So the idea that you can make your own game and cultivate a following for the game, knowing that games really live by word of mouth. They always have. That's how a game grows, a great game grows.
Yeah.
That this just put so much of those unknowns of, is somebody going to license it? Is somebody... Well, we just sort of took control ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is very empowering. I've mentioned earlier Lucille Ball, the quote about the more you do, the more you can do.
Yeah.
I tell you, there's all sorts of things I've learned about importing and shipping and and fulfillment houses and all sorts of things that I never really engaged with before. I knew this happened. But it makes it all very...
You probably usually sent an email and filed the paperwork for somebody else to kind of sort out, I guess, being in the industry. So has it been quite novel? It must have been quite novel for you to get your hands dirty and be doing things from the ground up completely.
Yes, it gave me a much greater appreciation for all those people I worked with all those years. And what they had done. I tell you also is the numbers, it's very interesting. When you're working for a big company, you throw around pretty big numbers, and you do it without thinking that much about them. Boy, when it's your own company and they're your own dollars, the numbers, even though they're much smaller, seem much bigger. It's exciting. So we're very excited about the game, and I think what's wonderful is we're also getting a lot of really first-hand feedback. We've taken it to Comic-Con and played it in demos. We've taken it and played it at various game stores in the region and game cafes, and we get people's response. And really, it's a lot of fun. You're really living it, and people are there. They've never played it, and you've never even met, and all of a sudden, they're really enjoying it and loving it. And there's a personal satisfaction that, frankly, when I take a game and invent it and maybe play it with some trusted people and then ultimately pitch it to a company, and it's usually not done then when you pitch it to a company. It's mostly done. Then they buy it, and, I don't know, a year later it comes out on the shelf. And but
so
you're already...
This is like your proper kind of... It sounds to me this is like your proper baby. I mean, this is kind of like... This isn't... While obviously you've been involved in the games industry for many years, there's a lot of kind of time, and it sounds like blood and sweat and tears invested in Moriarty's web. So, I mean, you sound very, very passionate about it.
Well, you're absolutely right, and we approached the game really very professionally. I mean, we have our costs all set up. We have our production schedules all set up. We know when the games are going to be delivered, because I've heard a lot of negative comments about Kickstarter programs where, hey, the thing was never delivered or was delivered super late. And for us, we have an option to, if you want to pay some extra shipping, you can get it before Christmas. If not, you'll be getting it in January. And I mean,
but our Kickstarter, we definitely want people to know, is a sure thing. It's like pre-ordering the game. The game is happening.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken to a couple of people who have done Kickstarter who, if the Kickstarter doesn't get funded, then the game doesn't kind of get made. And it's, obviously it's reassuring to hear that this game is going to, the game's going to go out there if, no matter what happens, obviously, on the Kickstarter, but obviously people who are backing the Kickstarter are definitely going to get the game as well. I mean, are there other games? Do you have, obviously, the Kickstarter is going to come in, it's going to fund, you're going to be sending this out to people. Just looking at the game itself, and from what I've seen on Facebook, it looks really, really interesting. There seemed to be some very, very good feedback from what I've seen as well. Do you have other games? I mean, is this going to be another... Are there other kind of games going to be coming from yourselves if this one does as well as it's expected to?
Absolutely. One of my biggest challenges is that we have one that we want to do that we'll follow it up, and in many ways will be easier to do than this first one, which is pretty ambitious. And frankly, I have to pull myself from doing a lot of the creative development work on that to make sure that everything with Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's web is on track with the Kickstarter itself.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, is what people don't realize, I guess, is that there's the year, possibly even 2-3 years before even the Kickstarter goes up, that you're kind of beavering away, getting everything together. And it's only when the Kickstarter kicks in isn't the first time you're kind of working on the project. So you're saying what you've done is you've had to step back from other things that you're working on in order to concentrate on the Kickstarter now. Then, yeah.
Our sort of
absolutely
our sort of advertising marketing campaign, our social media presence, our banner ads, our public appearances, our all of this stuff. It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we realize how important it is, certainly with a Kickstarter, to be on top of it with all the social media, which is not something that I grew up with. So, but you really appreciate it, and frankly, even doing your show. And thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Everything we can do to get the word out, because there's absolutely an audience for Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's Web, and the real trick is just getting it to all those people that are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, getting it to the table basically is what it's about. I mean, what's your kind of because again, are you at the same levels of excitement that you were at when you were maybe back in the days of doing Thunder Road and the manager came round and said, Jim, we're going to be running with your game for you? I mean, is it kind of, you getting that kind of feeling again, the kind of the same levels of excitement as with you completely creating this from scratch?
I am very close to the products now, but at being an inventor, and frankly, you're even closer to it when you're not only the inventor, but you're pretty much the whole company in terms of doing a Kickstarter and getting it out there. I mean, just with just a handful of people. So that is wonderful. Yeah, compared to running much larger organizations where maybe I wasn't able to get really hands-on with products just because of the nature of just the numbers that we were making, and you spend a lot of time doing things other than actually designing and making games.
And of course, Lucy, you're at the other end of this because this is potentially your first. Is it your first project, kind of game design wise?
No, almost. I mean, I've been involved on some of Dad's other projects since he kind of became a freelance inventor and consultant. I wrote a lot of Rotten Apples. I wrote stuff for the 4-player Stratego that we worked on. So no, and I helped in the development process of our next Kickstarter project. So no, I've been around and I've been doing things, but this is very much my project.
It's very it sounds a lot more personal.
Yeah, as
it's not business as personal.
Completely. As opposed to someone else's project that I was brought on to work on. This is very much my project, and it's fun. It probably was an ambitious one to start off with. Dad says, this was a very difficult game to design, and even Dad says so. That it's not just me. But
no, I mean it's from what I've seen, it looks really, really interesting. I've not seen anything kind of similar to that, and I obviously at We're Not Wizards, we do keep an eye out on what's kind of kicking about on Kickstarter. I can't say I've seen anything kind of similar, even in terms of the mechanics and how it kind of works together. Obviously, one of the things that anybody listening to this and they're like going, right, okay, how do I get hold of this? One of the things they're going to ask is how much is a copy going to be? If
Well,
right now on the Kickstarter, it will be $40 for the game.
Okay.
And
you can get a discount if you buy 3. I think we have a three for the price, or 4 for the price of 3.
For gifts. For gifts.
Actually, 3 for the price of 4 would have been that would be more. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
So
4 for the price of
3. So how many components? You get your deck of cards with that. You get your various different kind of crime tiles. Moriarty tile, things like that. So
you get everything. You get the game, you get the movers, you get all of our beautiful cards with our beautiful artwork. And if you pay slightly higher than that, you can get some of the original art that went into the game, and prettier playing pieces. we're sourcing these little like little found object movers, like a little bullet for Watson, bullet casing. They give it sort of a cool steampunk found object look.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Which will be cool. But yeah, no, the basic game is 40.
Okay.
And
okay.
Have you
thought about stretch goals and stuff like that as well? Or are you just kind of happy to get the orders in?
At this point,
we do have stretch.
Yeah, my sort of the stretch goal that's I think would be fun is my idea for stretch goals was mostly expansion packs, because of the nature of this game is that it's extremely easily expandable. And if you have different clues and different, suspects and witnesses, you can tell slightly different stories. So I would love to have one where it's a Sherlock Holmes versus Dracula expansion pack, or a Sherlock Holmes versus Cthulhu expansion pack, because
that could be very, very cool. Because it could be very, very cool.
Yeah, it's just
the program right now. We do have, like Lucy had mentioned, you can get some of the artwork from the game itself, original artwork, and then we actually have the option where you can commission a portrait of your favorite character. Of one of the 6 characters, you can commission a portrait of them as well. So it's pretty. I mean, we're really kind of, there's the game, and then a lot of the artwork that goes along with the game. And that's a big part of what we're offering.
That sounds good.
And stretch goals would be fantastic, but it's like I almost don't want to think about stretch goals. It feels unlucky.
Exactly. If obviously one of the things you mentioned was the demon that is social media. So if people want to find you, where can they find you?
We are on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We are Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's Web on Facebook.
Twitter, it's Moriarty's Web.
Yeah.
Okay.
Instagram, it's Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's Web.
Yeah. And
But again, we'll make sure that all of your social media stuff is in the is going to be in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Okay. By the time hopefully by the time that everybody's listening to this, there will also be a link to the actual Kickstarter campaign itself,
yes,
which will also be in the show note. Also be in the show notes as well. I will make sure they are all out. But again, for anyone that's listening, it's Sherlock Holmes. It's called Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty's Web. It is a game for 3 to 6 players. It is going to be about $40 on Kickstarter, which is going to be about It's going to work about £34, I think, based on the current exchange rate. And I think at this point, I can only thank both of you for coming on the show, and spending time to have a chat through the game. It's been a lot of fun. I hope you've both enjoyed yourselves.
Thank you. I absolutely did. This was fun.
No, Richard, thanks for having us. It's love to listen to your podcasts, and it's
that's nice.
No, it is. It's really fun. And I'm just where's your partner's Colin?
Yeah.
I'm sad I didn't get to talk to Colin.
Colin is out and about somewhere. He's at this time of night he'll be out fighting crime and defending the innocent. Or probably he won't be. He'll just be running about in the rain laughing. Which is what he likes to do, depending on the night that it is. But remember, again, if you want to keep up with ourselves and what we do, we have got our Facebook, which is facebook.com/We're Not Wizards. We are on Twitter at We're Not Wizards. We are also on Instagram, which is instagram.com/We're Not Wizards. You can get us on Stitcher. You can get us on Acast. You can even email us if you want, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. But remember, the main thing is, we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, guys?
No.
No, we are clearly not wizards.
Clearly not wizards. We're detectives.
Today
Wizards,
we're detectives.
go and find your clues somewhere else, wizards. We don't need you. But at this moment in time, it's a goodbye from me. My name's been Richard. Thank you for joining us. And it's a goodbye from Lucy. Lucy, goodbye.
Yes, goodbye. Thank you so much for listening.
And a goodbye from Jim, who has just, in the space of 45 minutes, become a hero of mine.
Well, goodbye to all those people out there.
Yeah. Again, and everybody else, thank you and goodbye.